How's it going? I saw your post the other day with your one-armed workout.
Yeah, so yeah, just because for my sanity, that was the longest I've gone without working out, so I had to get back to it. So yeah, I'm doing can't drive, so like fortunate I've got a halfway decent fitness center in the apartment. So walk down there and push one day, pull one day, legs one day, rinse, lather, repeat. Doctor's appointment tomorrow, so I'm hoping they put me in something less cumbersome than this. I
Right.
won't, I still won't be able to move it, but if you just like, hey, just give me a hinged brace or something, like
Yeah.
I'll be good.
It'd be enjoyable going to your apartment gym and seeing all the looks that you get with holding your arm.
It's fairly dead in there. Like there were a couple people there on Saturday, and that's been about it. So
Yeah, well, it's because you're in such a bastion of things to do. Like you're in a really good area in Atlanta, be able to see a bunch of different stuff. The Braves are uh, doing well currently, so
and
make
that's been the killer thing is like I don't. It's not in a good position to like be comfortable to sit for 3 hours during a ball game. So I'm like, shit, I just keep missing out on games. Like
yeah.
if I don't elevate it for more than 5 minutes, my fingers still turn purple. So I'm like, yeah, all right, probably not good to walk up there either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as much as I love the stadium, one of the issues I have with it is once you're in the aisle, like you are on top of somebody in front of you.
Right.
Like are very vertical seating.
Like they have the ADA seats, which would probably be beneficial to me. Like it still wouldn't help with my arm, but I also wouldn't be on top of everybody either. So
Yeah.
that could be potential. And like, hey, I just need
But
somewhere to like,
in front of it.
can you hire somebody just to hold my arm for the next 2.5 hours? That's all I need.
You could drink a tall boy and then balance it on top of the tall boy.
That's true. All right,
Or get
just keep stacking them higher and higher too. Just...
yeah, yeah, just slowly see what you can do. You might get yourself on the Tron. But that's oh man. Either way, hopefully you do get something other than the large brace that you're currently wearing tomorrow.
Because it says like on the post-op appointment paperwork, it's like splint fitting. I'm like, all right, please mean something other than like a splint like this.
Hopefully.
Because it's sharp right here and it digs into my ribs and like yeah, it's fun.
That does sound terrible, especially when you're sleeping.
It's and I'm not a back sleeper and that's the only way I'm allowed to sleep now. So fun shit. Yeah. So the lesson here is don't tear your triceps tendon.
Okay, yeah. I would imagine the lessons with all of our injuries is don't do it. Uh,
Yeah, don't wrestle. I think is probably the biggest lesson.
hey, this thing Chris Jericho said, if you want to be a professional wrestler, be prepared to be in pain for the rest of your life. So,
Like it was funny. I was talking with somebody the other day about like number of surgeries I've had, and like the stuff that I don't consider surgeries, most people do. Because I was like, oh, just four, and I was like, well, wait, tonsillectomy. Oh yeah, and this and that. I was like, oh, it's like eight.
I don't remember when it was, but at some point in time, I typed up all of my past medical history into a document so that I could print it and take it to whatever doctor's office just to ask them to attach it. That way, I don't have to hand write in this tiny little box. They give you this like 4 lines to write your past medical stuff. There's no way with
Yeah,
all.
the pre-op screening call with the nurse was fun. She's like, past surgeries. I was like, do you need all of them, or do you like it's a certain time span? She's like, start from the top. It's like, all right. She's like, anything else? Like, I don't think so. She goes, yeah, that's enough. And she's like, any questions about tomorrow? And I was like, no. I was like, as you can tell from the surgery history, this isn't my first rodeo. She's like, fair enough.
The kid in the Goonies with the start from the beginning. When I was in third grade, I put fake puke over the balcony. But while we're busily talking about all the times we've had issues with injuries, this leads us to our topic for today.
Yeah, because I guess kind of multifaceted today, but yeah, I thought it was a pretty good tie-in with all the inflammation I have in my arm right now.
All the inflammation, plus, while you're busily trying to consume a similar amount of food, you might be wondering about how could food help you boost your metabolism.
Correct.
So it all comes together. I have been consulted more than once inside of the hospital setting to go over an anti-inflammation diet. Um, and I've also been consulted to help boost people's metabolism before. I'm not sure when those two things took off in the American vernacular that anti-inflammation diets existed, or when foods started boosting your metabolism.
I think it probably, like a lot of things, goes back to some influencer somewhere on some social media source, like we've talked about in the past.
Um, with that, there is actually no anti-inflammation diet.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like this is gonna be a really short podcast.
Yeah. And there is no foods that boost your metabolism.
But what if I drink warm lemon water with cayenne pepper in it? Like I read on such and such that that was going to make me burn an extra 5,000 calories a day.
Yeah, that's not true. So things to think about though with that, because there's some misnomers out there, and if you do a quick Google search, you'll find plenty of stuff that claims to be true. And I frequently warn people about trusting things that they find on the internet. But I have pulled up here an article from a well respected American university about foods that could cause inflammation. I don't know who wrote this, but I disagree with a lot of it. And what I think it comes down to is people have some pre existing condition, and then it could cause insert whatever problem. And if you adjusted your nutrition intake, it might lessen some of the effects of your pre existing condition. For example, let's say you have gout and that causes pain in your joints, which would be considered inflammation, right? But if you took out foods that are known sources of purines, which cause the creation of uric acid, you would reduce your inflammation. That is not to say that those foods, in fact, cause inflammation for all people, but it would cause inflammation for people that suffer from gout, right? So that's where I think a lot of the
Not just a simple, straightforward thing. Yeah, it's like you said, a pre-existing condition, and yeah, so therefore it makes sense. Not just, oh, eating liver is going to cause inflammation in everybody. Yeah,
you had diabetes and you drank a lot of sugar sweetened beverages or straight juice, it would likely cause you to be in diabetic ketoacidosis, which would be an inflammatory response of you consuming all those sugar sweetened things because you are diabetic. So again,
like,
pre-existing condition, food
and
that exacerbates it. Now you're
I think it ultimately comes down to with it in the mainstream of like finding all the stuff and people asking about this. Like you said, you fill these questions, I fill these questions all the time. Like it's ultimately that hope that, hey, it can be easier. I don't have to put in the work type stuff. They're like, oh, like if I can reduce inflammation, it's going to make it easier. Oh, if I, can figure out ways to hack my metabolism. I've heard that before. Here's metabolism hacks. There's not metabolism hacks. Like even like the like we've talked about, like the burn after exercise. You're still not burning nearly as many calories from that as you think you are. Same thing with food. We talked about the thermic effect of food, but with that, it's still a minuscule amount versus your activities of daily living versus your exercise, all that fun stuff. So it's just, I think ultimately we want to believe as people there's an easy shortcut, and there's not. There's not. You have to put in the work, and You can ultimately work with people who can help you figure out how to work smarter, not harder, but you still have to work. People like us. That's the reason you can sign up for a free meet and greet, franchisenf.com, and we can teach you the proper ways to eat, help teach you the proper ways to work out to make it to where you're not having to kill yourself doing it to reach your goals.
Yeah. As I've said on this podcast ad nauseum, healthy is your relationship with food. It's not itself. On this well-respected American University's website about anti-inflammatory diets, there's a giant infographic. I'll share this link in the show notes at this point in time. I don't agree with the words that they use on here because it demonizes food. However, what I do want to point out about this handout is that the foods that they suggest cause inflammation are fried foods. There's a picture of a French fry box from a very popular restaurant. Sodas, a typical soda cup pictured. Refined carbs. I don't know why they have a picture of a banana on here because be refined.
I can't count the number of times I've made sure I have an ultra processed banana in my diet.
I want to say because it's probably the picture is looks like it's a spotted banana. So as banana ripens, it converts more of its things to simpler sugar. Um, I would still not say that's a refined carbohydrate, but there's also a picture of white bread behind it. There is a picture of lard and a picture of uh, processed meats, quote unquote. But the picture is a hamburger and a hot dog. So in the non-inflammatory foods, the inflammation foods, anti-inflammation
So
foods.
anti-inflammation. So they're supposed to help cure inflammation, not just the fact that they're quote non-inflammatory. These are going to get rid of the inflammation in my arm right now post surgery.
Right. I just quote from this. Chronic inflammation has been linked to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, depression, and Alzheimer's. Fight inflammation with a healthy diet. At the top of this infographic, the anti-inflammation foods that they list are tomatoes, fruits, leafy greens, fatty fish, olive oil, and nuts.
So what I'm seeing here is that it's the normal stuff that hey we want to eat in moderation that's inflammatory, and the stuff that it's more of like hey green light as long as it's appropriate portions that's the anti-inflammatory. Weird how that works.
Would have thought. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know where it came into being, but it truly an anti-inflammation diet does not exist. What is recommended, and you will see this frequently, the most cited diet for basically anything is the Mediterranean diet, where it focuses on lean meats, fatty fish, and getting plenty of fruits and vegetables. That happens with basically every single chronic condition that exists out there. That's what we would always recommend that you do. If you have a chronic condition that can be exacerbated by consuming things like fried foods, refined carbohydrates, and processed foods, quote unquote processed. We had a previous podcast about processed foods. I'll link that in the show notes. If you have a chronic condition that's exacerbated by any of those things, of course, we're going to recommend that you cut them out to help with your chronic inflammation or have healthy substitutions.
Is
Or,
that kind of I'm interested because like I deal so much more with like the general population, so I'm interested with how it's presented to you in like in a hospital setting. Like, is it like, hey, we need an anti-inflammatory diet, like a patient's family or patient's asking, like, how do you come into contact with this?
other, I'm trying not to people under the bus. I'll to answer your question, I'll tell a quick anecdote story. I once did a study on a non-nutritive sweetener. So a plant-based artificial sweetener. In that room, there were four dietitians, a medical doctor, a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, a nurse, a certified diabetes educator, and another certified diabetes educator. When they asked, where do you get your research from? So back to our previous podcast of experts versus experts, or even expert versus expert, right? These people are all medically trained people. Every dietitian cited a clinical journal of some kind or the advanced evidence library or advanced analysis library now is what it's called from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the PubMed, like just all the things that we talked about last time. All of the other ones cited blogs or magazines that they would then tell patients or clients about because they felt like it made it simple enough for them to consume the information. So all of the other ones were against this non-nutritive sweetener, and every dietitian was like, this is perfectly fine. There's no evidence that suggests that it's bad for you.
Oh.
So relay that to your question where you asked, how do I come across these consults? It's other practitioners that think what's key for this person is for them to avoid insert food.
Right. Inflammatory foods or yeah, stuff. Yeah.
I'm going to consult the dietitian to come in and tell them to not eat all of this stuff. So when real world example, there's a patient that is morbidly obese, right? They'll do care conferences with multiple practitioners of various degree with the patient. And if it's a morbidly obese person, they'll ask a dietitian to come in to it. So patient is in the hospital. I can almost 100% guarantee they did not come to the hospital because they are obese. They came to the hospital because of something that happened because they are obese, right? Um, for example, they had a fall and something broke. They have a wound from bumping up against something. They have a wound from not being able to clean themselves properly. They have any other chronic condition that's been exacerbated. Their condition would, of course, be better if they lost weight. They come to the hospital. They are now then given this goal by this other group of people, not dietitians, this other group of people that they need to lose weight and that'll cure their problem. Yes, I agree with you. That would probably greatly help their problem if this person lost weight. Their goal for coming in here was not to lose weight. They came for their other
Right.
problem. Then we get brought in and they say, I heard this in a care conference from another person. Like, your problem is that you are addicted to this food and you need to stop eating pro-inflammatory foods. Like, I would say that they do need to make out some exchanges, but this person that's sitting here in front of you while you're demonizing the food that they're eating has been working to make exchanges that we should be applauding. They stopped drinking the regular soda and now they have diet soda. They stopped having their family members bring in foods from certain places and they are bringing them foods in from other places because they dislike the food that's presented to them at the hospital. Like, what am I going to do? And we should be celebrating those exchanges similarly to how we work with clients at franchisenf.com, where we celebrate the goals that you have that you come to us with and that you're working towards.
There's so many multifaceted issues here. Yeah, like it's progress, not perfection. The fact that they've made progress should be celebrated. Not going to make changes, change everything overnight. And the thing that I've heard from like I've worked a lot with a lot of weight loss clients throughout my career, and they always talk about doctors looking at them and telling them, you need to lose weight, and they're like, no shit, I know I'm fat. I've heard that from so many people. Like, that doesn't do any good. Like, it's like, let's set you up for success for ways to focus on, going back to what we always talk about, focus on habits and behaviors, not the fact that you're overweight or that you're obese or that you're morbidly obese. Let's focus on habits that could help lead us away from not the fact that, hey, somebody who's overweight, somebody who's 100 pounds overweight understands they're 100 pounds overweight. There's very few people I've ever come into contact with that did. Like, we don't need to hammer that home. We need to hammer home that, hey, let's eat more fruits and vegetables. Hey, let's drink more water. Hey, let's move more. Like, and I think that's, you're really citing kind of that disconnect with the medical community right now versus somebody within the fitness community or nutrition community.
Right.
That's what we like to do, is to be able to focus on those activities and behaviors versus focusing on the condition.
Yeah. And I think it's an issue with inpatient versus outpatient, right? So I work inside of a hospital and they're looking at problems as acute fixes. Like you can fix somebody and get them outside the hospital and they can be gone. Um, and this goes also to the other topic for today, where we're talking about metabolism boosting foods, because then they'll also say, well, you need to eat more of insert random thing. I don't know where they get it from. That would boost your metabolism. And it still goes back to exactly what we've been talking about this whole time. There are no foods that are known to actually increase your body's rate of metabolizing them. It doesn't exist. Sure, you can consume things that might increase your blood pressure, but that is not increasing your metabolism.
It's like, all right, cool. Let's go consume a bunch of salt. Sweet. Metabolism problem solved.
I've solved all the issues in the world. Consume more sodium. Um, which we'll talk about that another day. Like there are certain times when you just should consume more sodium, and that the low sodium diet recommendation isn't good for all persons.
Almost like there's not a one size fits all approach. It's weird.
Yeah, that's very odd. Uh, so, metabolism boosting foods for this misnomer, I would suggest going back and listening to our best exercise for fat loss episode, which I'll link in the show notes here. That is going to help you burn more calories by doing what we suggest there than trying to eat different foods. Things that you could do to help you lose weight, which I think is what people are looking for when they're talking about metabolism boosting foods, are making the same exchanges that we've already mentioned in this podcast, swapping out some of those choices for, quote unquote, better choices, but choices that are going to be more nutrient rich and less calorically dense. Right. So if simple, as we're talking about fruits and things, instead of having apple pie, you would have an apple, right? So when you look at those two things right next to each other side by side, there's probably around
Uh,
500 calories.
500 calories versus 80 calories. Like,
It's not
funny
really.
how that works.
And there's, of course, probably going to be more vitamins and minerals available to you in your body inside of that apple versus the apple pie, which will have minimal amounts of an actual apple in it. Or even if you have like the really layered apple pie, by the time you've added all the extra stuff, you've kind of negated a lot of the benefits that you're going to get out of it. However, if you work with us at Franchise Nutrition and Fitness, the things that we would tell you is that you can still have your apple pie as long as you get those other needs in your budget. Then you can work on what do you have left to be able to get the things that you want. For example, Matt cut a lot of weight at the beginning of the year, and Matt still had the beer that he likes to drink, right? Because he did the extra work into getting.
Right. I programmed that into my program. I would not have had to have worked nearly as hard if, like, it's what's most important to you. Like, yeah, cool. I could have cut out beer. Sweet. I would have lost the weight much easier, would not have to done near the amount of cardio I did. But that was important to me, and that was not a sacrifice I was willing to make. So it's what's most important to you. It's not a one size fits all approach.
Yeah.
I'd have
I,
been miserable if I cut out booze. Like, I'm not doing that.
exactly. I like craft beer, so I can have one beer to Matt's three because he drinks light beer. And I also like dessert, quote unquote, dessert foods, uh, such as ice cream and brownies and cake and whatever. Would I ever consider removing all of those things from my diet if I was trying to cut? Absolutely not. It's part of things that I enjoy doing, things that I get to experience with family and friends. I'm not going to cut out those experiences so that way I can meet some goal. If I was a pro bodybuilder, yeah, I probably would cut out some of those
Right.
experiences.
It's yeah. It's what's the end goal? How important is it to you?
Yep.
For me to have like a six pack for a couple of days because I didn't have six packs, like like no, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So, in short, as I say all the time, 2 servings of fruit, 3 servings of vegetables, 3 servings of vitamin D fortified foods. Try to get your meats as lean as you can. That's going to help with both your inflammation, and it's also probably going to help you, quote unquote, boost your metabolism because you will likely be cutting out calories from switching from, you know, calorically dense foods to less calorically dense foods, and, nutrient void foods to nutrient rich foods. So, all of those things to say that if you are looking to improve your chronic inflammation, if you are looking to lose weight, head on over to franchisenf.com and sign up for your free meet and greet today. We'll help you make the adjustments that you need to make to both your nutrition and fitness to help you reach the goals that you actually have for yourself and not some goals that someone else is trying to force onto you. So, anyway, like we say every week, maximize every bite.
Maximize every rep.